So my dear friends, welcome back. So in this chapter we are going to cover the remaining part that we have in this chapter. So in this part of the video we are going to start with the ocean movements. And in this ocean movements, of course, we will try to understand what actually we are going to study. So let's start with what actually is this topic all about, ocean movements. So in this video we are going to talk about ocean movements. So basically when I'm talking about oceanic movements, I am talking about the movement or the movement or the circulation of water in the oceans, right? So when we talk about the oceanic movements, we are basically talking about the circulation of water in the oceans, right? And when we say ocean movements, we basically talk about three type of movements that usually you will find in ocean movements. So three type of movements, that is wave, this tide, and then we have to study about the ocean currents, right? Three types of oceanic movements you will come across when we study ocean movement. So let's start our discussion with wave. What is this wave and what actually we mean by it, right? So let's start with the wave, right? And in the wave we will see how there is actually the movement of energy that is taking place. And if you have if you have visited any beach in India or across the world, you would have find this wave. Actually, that is the most funniest part on the beach. You play in the beaches with balls, you will throw the ball and the ball will return back, and this is the type of entertainment that we have in the beaches. Okay, whenever you will visit beach, you will might across might play this game, because this is actually a very interesting game to play. Now, so let's start with our discussion with wave. What actually is the wave? First, I will write the definition. I want you to write the definition at the same time when I am writing, so that you can be at the same frequency with me. So let's start with wave. What is actually the wave? So it is the smooth movement of oceanic surface water of oceanic surface water in upward and downward direction. So it is the smooth movement of oceanic surface water in upward and downward direction. And of course you can add another point here, which is characterized by a well developed crust and the trough. Crust and the trough. So this is the most comprehensive definition that can we have about the wave. Now we will try to understand this. This is the most comprehensive definition. You can break this definition here, okay, and then after you can write that this wave is characterized by a well developed crust and the trough. Okay, let's understand what is the wave. It is the smooth movement. When I say a smooth movement, means water is moving up in a very smooth type of motion, not very abrupt type of motion. And the most important point, this is the movement of oceanic surface water. Just underline it and make a circle. This is the movement of surface water only surface water is impacted by wave in upward and downward direction, right? And when the wave will move in upward and downward direction, when oceanic surface water will move in upward and downward direction, there will be formation of crust and the trough. Now you know what is crust and trough. If you don't know, then if there is a motion like this, the upper part that we have is called crest and the lower part is called trough. So whenever you will come across a wave in the ocean, you will find that there is a well characterized, well established crust and trough. You can easily distinguish that there is a formation of crust and trough. So that is why I have emphasized upon this whole idea, that it is characterized by a well developed crust and the trough. Now this definition is very comprehensive in itself. Why? Because first, this is a smooth movement, and movement of what? Surface water. It means that the water in the deep ocean is not impacted, right? It is not impacted. So this is just the movement of surface water. And now come to this upward and downward movement. So suppose this is the surface water of oceans we have. So this is the surface water of ocean, and then the water is at the depth. This is at depth water. What will happen when wind flows? It has a great amount of energy in it. So what will happen? This wind which is flowing, so this is basically air particles which is moving with some amount of speed and has some amount of energy as well. Now this wind particle which is moving, suppose this is wind particle. Suppose this is the wind particles which are moving, right? Not so much, there are some spaces between them. So suppose these are wind particles which are moving, and when these wind particles will strike with the surface molecules, the molecules of water which are at the surface, what will happen? There will be a friction will be occurring here, and because of this frictional force, what will happen? That these particles that are at the surface will start to rise like this. So what is happening here? That this air particle will be pushed upward, and these particles will move like this. So this particle is actually moving like this, okay? And air particles that we have had, it will move in such a manner, in this direction. And when this water will rise above, so there will be a gravitational force that will be occurring here. The gravitational force of the earth will pull this water back. So what will happen? There will be a formation of crust. This is the crust, and then water will fall down. So this water molecules will fall down. Okay, are you getting me? So what will happen? That this water which was at the surface is now has moved to some height, has attained some height, okay? And now since it is being pulled back, what will happen? As it will come back to the surface, what will happen? As soon as it is rising above, there is a formation of trough here, and at the same time there will be a formation of trough here. That is, the water at the surface just immediate to this rise of water will go down, right? And as this water will come back, this area will go up. So this area will go up, and this area will now again form a this like of situation. So this type of what is actually happening, let's try to understand from this hand. Suppose this was the surface of oceanic wave, and what is happening here is that when the wind is flowing, the surface water is being scratched, and it is being lifted. So suppose this is the type of lift that has occurred of the oceanic surface water. Now gravitational force is occurring, so it is pulling it down. Now when it will fall down, what will happen? The water that is in the vicinity of this trough, sorry, the crest, when this crust will go down, the it it will form the new trough, and this area will rise and this area will also rise. So this type of movement of water will happen. So as you can see, it very easy to understand. So this is the basic idea behind the wave. So what will happen? The water, actually you will see that this type of movement is actually taking place on the oceanic surface. So that is why I am talking about this smooth movement of oceanic surface water in upward and downward direction. Whenever something rises, the area which is in immediate vicinity will go down, and when it will fall down, it will rise up. So in this way you will find that the surface oceanic water will move. So this is the crust and this is the trough, which is a well characterized. Now one most important thing is, what is the major force that is causing this type of movement? So the major force behind wave is the wind. So this is the wind which is causing all these things here. This is the wind which is causing all these phenomena occurring here, and not other things. Okay. One most important point which I want to make here is, so you need to understand that in wave actually we see that water is moving, but when I say actually the water is not moving, what will you say? Okay, so when I say waves, so when I say, sorry, this is a little damp here, so let me dry it. So when I say waves are actually the energy that move and not the water as such. So what I'm talking, waves are the energy and not the water. So in what I'm trying to make, the point which I'm trying to make here is that whenever you see the wave, actually that is the energy that is flowing. The water that has risen above, it will come down at the same place. Okay, and then again this water will rise up, and it will again rise, you will come down at the same place. So the water that has lifted, it will come back again to the same position. So the position of water is changing, but only in the vertical position, not in horizontal direction. The water which was here, it will continue to remain here. So that is why I am making this point, that in waves, when you see waves, these are actually the energy and not the water as such. Okay, so when we say that water is moving, but actually the water is not moving in a horizontal motion, it is actually moving in vertical motion. Okay, so whatever water, suppose this was the surface water that we have, and this water has risen. So what will happen, that here you will find that the water has gone, level has gone down, here also the water level has gone down. So this water has risen, and when it will fall, it will again come to fill this position. So the water molecules was actually in a circular motion. This same molecule has gone here, this molecule has gone here, this molecule has gone here, and it will again form in a circle. So what is happening here, water is going up, water is coming down, and water is again, okay, going up and coming down. So this is just a type of circular motion that is happening in the wave. So my dear friends, this was the basic idea behind the wave. Okay, hope you have understood it. So now let's move to our second part. And actually, by the way, when I say this is the energy, where the energy goes, actually there will be some point where this energy will be released, because oceans also have some coast, that is what we call beaches. So where does energy gets transformed? So actually when you visit a beach, you will find that there are sands located here. So where has this sands come from? And you will also, we actually have dealt with some of the features that are caused by these waves. For example, sea cliffs, we have talked about the arches, we have talked about the stamps and the stacks. So these are actually the energy which are causing a great amount of erosional activities at the coastal areas. So actually these are the energy, these are the wave that has a great amount of energy, and this line you must not forget. So the major force behind this wave is the wind, and the deep water, the water which is at the deep, is not impacted at all. So just try to understand all these points, okay, and you will be never be in any trouble with regard to waves, okay. So this brings us to the concluding part of this wave. Now move to the second type of movement that we have, and that is the tide, okay. So let's understand what actually is the tide, and then we will look into what are the various types of tide we have, right? So let's understand this tide phenomena, okay. So when we talk about tide, the basic force that we have seen in the waves is the wind. But in case of tide, of course tide is also a type of oceanic movement that we have. So when we talk about tide, in tide, the major force behind the tidal activities or the tidal movement is not the wind. In this case we have our Chanda Mama and Suraj Mama which is acting. Now let's have understanding of this tide. So tides, let's understand this tides. So let's in the tide we will try to understand what actually is happening here. So when we talk about tide, let's define it. Tides are vertical movement. I don't know if you are able to look at this, so let me try to write it with black marker so that you can have clarity of vision, okay. So tides are the vertical movement of oceanic water which occurs periodically twice in a day. Let's underline the key facts here. So these are the vertical movement again. The vertical movement is again taking place here. Of what? Of the oceanic surface water. Again, this surface water is missing here. So this is the movement of oceanic surface water, and also to the some extent the water which is beneath the surface, which occurs periodically. Periodically means it occurs after a repeated a regular interval of time, and the most important thing, twice in a day. Means you will observe tides 2 times in a day, and so this is the basic understanding of tide. So this is the vertical movement first, and this is the movement of again oceanic surface water, which occurs periodically. Periodically means at a regular interval of time, at regular time interval we will observe these tides. Okay, and twice in a day. This is something you have to remember, right? So when we talk about tides, what happens is that, okay, so write it down. Major forces acting behind tides. So of course I have already told you that tides are something which are not caused by wind. So this is caused by the gravitational pull. The gravitational pull, or you can simply write attraction of the moon, attraction of the moon to a very large extent, to a great extent, and the sun's attraction or the gravitational pull in a smaller extent, right? And then just try to look at the key points here. I have written that this is caused by gravitational pull. Okay, gravitational pull of what? Gravitational pull of moon and the gravitational pull of sun. Okay, fine, up to here fine, but at the same time I have written that the gravitational pull of the moon is greater in extent than the gravitational pull of the sun. And you will say, what are you talking about? Sun is, million times larger than the moon, and you are talking that sun's attraction pull is lesser than the moon. Yes, I confirm this. This is lesser than the moon's pull, and this is because you know that sun is very much farther than the earth in comparison to the moon. Our Chanda Mama is much closer to us than the Suraj Mama, right? So that is why this is the fact, this is the reason that we have the moon's attraction towards the earth almost double, this is almost 2 times than what we have the attraction of the sun. Okay, so on this note we now try to understand the 2 types of tides that we have, and this is something which is very essential if you want to understand the types of tides. Okay, because in the types of tide that we will learn, there this gravitational pull of sun and the gravitational pull of the moon, that is something which is very significant role, that has something very significant role to play, so let's try to understand what I am talking about, the types of, okay, sorry, so I'm talking about the types of tides that we have. So let's understand what are the types of tides, what are its types. So actually these are of 2 types. One is the spring tide, and the second one is the neap tide. Now listen to it very carefully. We have a spring tide and we have neap tides. Now what are these spring tide and neap tide? So let's understand this is spring tide. So it is a tide caused, of course, caused by the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon, caused when the earth, the sun and the moon are in same line. First point is that it will be caused only when the earth, the sun and the moon, the earth, the sun and the moon are in the same line. What does it mean? Okay, let's try to understand it. So suppose this is the sun we have. Suppose this is the sun, right? And here suppose we have the earth. Suppose this is the earth we have. Suppose this is the earth we have, right? So this is the earth, and it is the line which I was talking about. So suppose here is the moon which is orbiting the earth. So don't you see that the earth, the moon and the sun are in the same line? In such a situation, what will happen? That the attraction force of the sun, the attraction force of the moon and the attraction force of the sun, they will be in the same direction, and that is why the water that is contained here, the water which is here, the water that is here, it will be pulled up to a great extent because both the forces are acting at the same time. So here also, and because of the type of force that is called centrifugal force, you will have a bulge created also here. So these are called spring tides. You can also have a situation when this moon will be behind the earth. So suppose this is the moon. In such case also, so at one time the moon is between the sun and the earth on the same line, and at the other time the moon is, at the rear end of the earth, means the moon is hiding behind the earth. So in both the scenario you will have the spring tides, right? So it occurs, write the next point here, it occurs, so it occurs twice a month, right? You will find that it occurs twice a month. And when will it occur? Let's understand. So just draw this diagram, which is very very much essential to have clarity in mind. So spring tides occur twice in a month. And when it will occur? The first on a new moon day, and second full moon day. So it will occur at an interval of 15 days. So this is the full moon day. So this is, the new moon day, and this is the full moon day. This position we call it full moon day, and in this position we call it new moon day. So it occurs at an interval of 15 days. So this was the basic idea behind a spring tide. This is the the attraction force that is causing in the same direction, the earth and the sun attractional force. Then we have the second type of tide, that is called the neap tide, right? So spring tide we have dealt with. This is something we have dealt with. Now let's understand the neap tide. What is actually the neap tide? So what is neap tide? The moon which is moving around the earth, it has also a position. It will, in some point of time, suppose this is the orbit of the moon, so in some point of time it will also come here, and in the same manner, so this is the earth, in the same manner it will also at some point of time will come here. So from this point to this point it takes 7 days, and again from this point to this point it takes 7 days, again 7 days, and again 7 days on an average. Okay, so This is the position because of which we observe neap tides. What is happening here? That the moon and the sun are in a perpendicular position to each other. So a spring tide, a neap tide is caused when the earth, when the sun, remove the earth, when the sun and the moon are in are perpendicular to each other. So when they are perpendicular to each other, and as I hope that you know what is actually the perpendicular position, means this type of position. Suppose something is here and something is here, so in such a situation we call it perpendicular to each other. So what is happening here? Can you look it? Suppose I erase it. Let me erase it. So what are you have, what can you see here? This is 90 degree and also this angle is also 90 degree. So this is a perpendicular type of position that we can see. And if the sun's attraction force is this, the moon's attraction force is twice this force. So this is twice the force that is caused by the sun, and the attraction of the moon is twice the sun. So what will happen? Both these forces will try to influence each other, and in such a scenario the net force that is caused will get reduced. Okay, suppose this is an object, something is pulling it from this direction, and twice this force, suppose this is F and this is 2F, twice this force is pulling it upward. What will happen? The object will move in this direction, so object will move here and here. So what will happen here? The tides which were falling like this, which were uplifting like this, now this tide will be like this, and this tide will decrease in size. It will also decrease in size, and a small amount of tide that is called neap tide will be formed. So actually the attraction forces of sun and the moon try to influence each other, and that is why we have neap tide formation. So my dear friends, this is somewhere we are going to stop today. Okay, just remember the key line. The neap tide is caused, write it the full, neap tide is caused when the sun and the moon are perpendicular to each other. That is very important. That is, let's have a diagram, another diagram, so that you can have clarity of understanding. So what is happening here? The sun and the moon are in perpendicular direction. So let's have here, suppose we have the earth and moon is here. So this attraction force and this attraction force are trying to influence each other, and similarly here can also be the moon because it is moving in such a type of orbit. So what is happening? The net force is like this. So that is why we have a smaller height of tide that we will observe in neap tide. Now spring tides, which are very higher higher in size, you will see that also one thing I am missing here, that the interval between neap tide and spring tide is of 7 days. Why? Because when here was the moon, and this was the full moon day and it was the new moon day, and we know the interval between new moon day and full moon day is 15 days. So from here to here, from this position to this position, moon will take 7 days, and at this position it was spring tide that was occurring, and at this position it is neap tide that is occurring. Again here a spring tide will occur and here neap tide will occur. So what is the interval that you can see? So between two neap tides there is an interval of 15 days, and between a neap tide and a spring tide there is an interval of 7 days. So after knowing all this, you will not have any problem with regard to the questions on wave and tide. So in today's lecture, let's conclude here, let's end this lecture here, and in the next lecture we will look two more topics, that is the currents, the ocean currents and the tsunami. So let's restrict ourselves today at this point of, at this topic only, and so that we can have much more, energy for ocean currents and tsunami, because these are two very important points. We will see also map, the word map, how to draw it and how to deal with this currents and tsunami. We will come across various, terms in, tsunami and currents. So for today, for today's lecture, this is all we have. And if you do not have watched the lecture number 1, please go and watch on this channel only. And so have a diagram on your notebook so that you can have clarity of thought. And of course, share this video, subscribe this channel and like as well. If you really like this video, you can hit the like button and share, because many of the students have trouble in understanding this geography, because geography is something which is a technical type of subject, which is a type of conceptual subject, unlike history and other things which you can understand on your own, which you can which doesn't require so much of so much of, there is no so much of concept to deal with. So that is why I am telling you, share it. And okay, so let's meet in the third part of this lecture. Thank you and keep doing hard work. So again, thank you.